Welcome to summer in and around Sydney, and we promise you it will be simply sensational when you visit any of the 3 gardens managed by the Royal Botanic Gardens and Domain Trust. We'll start with the Royal Botanic Gardens Sydney, then take you to the Australian Botanic Garden Mount Annan, the largest in Australia, and finally leave you at the incredible cool climate garden, the Blue Mountains Botanic Garden in Mount Tomah, the highest garden in Australia. Believe it or not, summer is a great time to stop and smell the roses at the Royal Botanic Gardens Sydney, where many varieties are in bloom. First, let's find out about the history of the garden rose with Professor David Mabberley, Executive Director of the Trust.
Well, roses are not native in Australia. There are about 100, 150 different species in the northern parts of the world, and the nearest they get to us is the Philippines. But of course, we've cultivated them here in Australia since white settlement. The history of the rose is complicated because it essentially means the bringing together of the roses of the west, the cabbage roses from the eastern Mediterranean region, with the Chinese so-called tea roses. And it's the cross between those that gave us the first hybrid tea rose, which was in 1867, a cultivar, that's to say a cultivated variety called La France. They've always been of great fascination. I mean, the Romans loved them, and the Greeks before that. Even 500 years before Christ, the first so-called double rose was described. And yes, the rose itself is, a double rose is in fact a mutant. If you look, you can see that the stamens in the middle of the flower have been replaced by petals. And such a thing is referred to as a homoeotic mutant. So when you give your boyfriend or girlfriend a bunch of roses, you're actually giving them a bunch of homoeotic mutants.
Most people enjoy the delicate smell of a rose, but what has happened to their scent in recent years?
Yes, it would appear that the kinds of roses which will actually last a long time are the kinds which don't have much scent, unfortunately. However, for garden roses to be cultivated, particularly the David Austin series, they have bred back to some of the old scented cultivars to get that back into the modern rose.
You might be wondering what types of roses you'll see at the Royal Botanic Gardens Sydney. Here's horticulturist Dawson Owen.
When we created this rose garden in 2006, we did a lot of research to try and find the best varieties for Sydney, for our warm, humid coastal conditions here. Most of them are hybrid teas, which are bush rose everyone's familiar with, floribundas. We have some climbing roses and some ground covers, and we also have tea roses, which is an old-fashioned rose that does quite well in Sydney.
If you're thinking of growing roses yourself, they need to be planted in winter in Sydney because our winters are mild. July is a good time, and the most economical thing to do is plant the bare root. Sustainable horticulture is a priority, and the roses here flourish because of it.
We don't use any chemicals in the rose garden, so we're able to control insects with beneficial insects, and the diseases that you normally get on roses, which is black spot, powdery mildew and rust. We use bicarbonate of soda and a pest oil, which is a horticultural oil, to control that. Beneficial
insects are in abundance thanks to these techniques.
There's a parasitic wasp that the larvae feed on the aphids. We have spiders, ladybird beetles. We have their larvae, quite a voracious aphid eater. Got sawfly larvae and hoverfly larvae.
Roses are red, violets are blue, and we'd like to see you.
Probably one of the most distinctive is white iceberg. That's a floribunda, and that's very reliable. What I didn't mention also is we have some Alistair Clark roses, which are Australian bred roses, specifically bred for Australian conditions. There's too many to mention, really. There's a lot. Yeah. Come and visit for yourself.
Roses are bountiful, but there's more to see. The change from spring to summer brings with it many beautiful flowers and plants. Here's horticulturist David Laughlin.
Just as we're coming into early summer, we've got quite a lot of stuff that's, it's just about to finish flowering now, such as the jacarandas and the Illawarra flame trees and tipachinas and stuff like that. But then as we get into summer, we've got a huge range of flowers as well. On the flower bed lawns, we'll have some osteospermum, which are a huge range of different flowers from South Africa. We'll also have frangipanis flowering. We've got a pretty large collection of frangipanis, which have beautiful fragrant flowers in summer, and we'll have a lot of flowering trees around summer as well. And also bromeliads in tropical horticulture, which is behind us here, they flower for a long time throughout the year.
It's not just the flora that's worth seeing in summer, there's also interesting fauna. Here's John Martin, Wildlife Management Officer.
Within the Royal Botanic Garden there's a range of different fauna, a couple of different mammal species, but unfortunately you have to be here at night to see those. So during the day the visitors get to see a lot of different birds. Some of the most interesting birds are the powerful owl, the sulphur-crested cockatoo, and we've got some cormorants breeding behind us here in the main pond.
And for a rare experience, there is a special highlight.
Definitely the powerful owl is the highlight of anyone who's interested in birds. Powerful owls are a really large owl. We're talking standing about 50 centimetres tall with a 1.2 metre wingspan. They're an animal that actually eats brush-tailed possums, ring-tailed possums, things like this, big animals. It's not a bird that you'll commonly see in urban parks. It's more of a forest bird. So it's actually a really rare opportunity to see this really impressive predator in the urban environment.
There's a lot more to the experience of flora and fauna at the Royal Botanic Gardens, Sydney, than meets the eye, with plans to make your visit even more unforgettable. Here's Professor David Mabberley.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time for the gardens because we're the oldest, of course, in the country, the oldest scientific institution in the country, coming up to 200 years in 2016. And one of the things that we're going to be examining as a result of an international review we had of the gardens last year, one of the things we're going to be looking at is the master plan for this site. It's a very complicated site. Originally, of course, an important place for Aboriginal people. Then the site of the first European cultivation in Australia, the first farm. Then a rather formal botanic garden, and then the rather informal 19th century kind of botanic garden. And then on top of that, a lot more recent developments. And it's rather grown like Topsy, all these different layers. So what we need to think about is what does a botanic garden in the 21st century need to be like? And that is why we have commissioned expressions of interest to produce a new master plan for this site. But I think that we will find that we want to make, as befits this city, one of the very best botanic gardens in the world.
Professor Mabberley has a wonderful vision with families and children at the forefront.
I think that we need to have a garden which is of interest to all people, particularly children, and I want to see the whole of the garden used by children. The idea of corralling them into one space is an outmoded idea. And also, it's very important that the general public become engaged with plants through immersive experiences of various kinds. And we're looking to redevelop our tropical centre with that particular aim in mind.
As you've heard, engaging children with nature and plants is a priority. And for many years, the Community Education Unit at the Royal Botanic Garden Sydney has created fabulous programs for children of all ages to get involved in. Here's Education Officer Sophie Daniel to tell you more about what's happening this summer during the school holidays.
First of all, we've got the Christmas Botanical Craft from the 17th to the 20th of December, and children will explore the gardens looking for plant materials and then use them to come up with fantastic creative Christmas decorations for their home. The lead up to Australia Day, on the 24th and 25th, we've got a special program called Waggamugully Weaving, where we're going to look at Aboriginal traditional uses of plants here in the Waggamugully Cove, and then the children will make animal sculptures out of grasses and do a bit of weaving.
There's also something during the school term in summer that's hugely popular. There's something for people of all ages at the Royal Botanic Garden Sydney. Manager Volunteer Programs Donna Osland explains that experienced volunteer guides create intriguing, interesting walks. Or if you'd rather do a self-guided tour, there's a must-see guide too.
We have free guided walks every day at 10:30 and they leave from the information booth near the garden shop. And they're for small family groups, individual visitors that are coming into the gardens. If you have a bigger group or an organised group, we encourage them to book, and there is a fee for those. And we have a dedicated guide to those, and they can be tailor-made to the needs of that group. And the money raised for that goes towards the gardens.
While the Royal Botanic Garden Sydney is paradise in summer to visit during the day, can you imagine how spectacular it must be surrounded by nature while you see in the new year watching the most famous fireworks in the world? Venue coordinator Ruth Freeman attests it doesn't get any better.
Welcome to one of the best spots in the world on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve in the garden is probably the most spectacular event that we have here. We have 3 ticketed events here, and the reason that the Trust puts on the ticketed events is to recoup costs to allow public access to our sites on day as well. So the 3 ticketed events is Lawn with the View, Midnight at the Oasis and Harbour Lights, and they offer a range of services. Lawn with the View is a family style picnic in a more intimate environment located next to the Opera House. And then we have Harbour Lights, which is our newest ticketed event this year, and that too is a picnic, but we're trying to make that event as sustainable as possible. So this year people won't need to bring a thing to that event. We're supplying low beach chairs and picnic boxes, and there'll be a bar available there. Our final event is Midnight at the Oasis, and that is a 3-course meal with a drinks package and of course champagne, because you know, that's the night to celebrate. We have a dance floor as well, and people like to boogie the night away. It's a lot of fun, and we sell out every year for these 3 events, and it's vital to the Trust that that does occur, because we still do need to allow and manage safely the public access that occurs as well.
And Friends of the Botanic Garden are treated to their own New Year's Eve event.
The Friends and Foundation offer its members a benefit on New Year's Eve, and members can come down and enjoy a picnic as well. So that's actually inside the gardens, where people bring their own picnic as well, and they get to enjoy the fireworks and have some champagne in there as well.
Now we're at the Australian Botanic Garden at Mount Annan near Camden. It's a must to explore for Sydney-siders as well as interstate and overseas visitors. On its way to growing all of Australia's 25,000 native plant species, it abounds with life. Here's Director Kaz McCallum.
The Australian Botanic Garden, Mount Annan, is the largest botanic garden in Australia. In fact, I suspect it's the 2nd largest botanic garden in the Southern Hemisphere. 416.6 hectares, or about 1,200 acres in size. It's large enough for people who, if they want to get away from everything, they can find a quiet place, or if people are really interested in, being part of a scene with lots and lots of people, they'd go to Lakeside or the theme garden areas and just enjoy the facilities.
The expansive space means there are many activities on offer in summer, and throughout the year that simply can't be replicated at most botanic gardens.
We offer a wide range of activities for people here, and we particularly want them to enjoy the passive activities, just being able to look out around the place, enjoy the views, panoramic views from the Sundial Hill, for example, and also internal views down to Lakeside.
In terms of plants, Horticulture Manager Dan Bishop knows exactly what you should look out for in summer.
Well, we have a range of Australian plants that look fantastic during summer. We have a perennial display here at Mount Annan that showcases beautiful flowering summer annuals like Thai lotus and gomphorenas from Western Australia, but we also have kangaroo paws and other flowering perennials such as derwentias, scaevolas and various other plants that showcase the beauty of Australian plants.
A pleasant surprise for a botanic garden is the fact you don't have to just use your legs to get around.
We're a very large botanic garden as well, and we intermingle our woodland areas with grasslands and also botanic displays. So when people travel around the site by vehicle or on foot or on bicycle, they're able to see a range of different display areas that capture the diversity of Australian plants.
And Director Kaz McCallum offers a few more ideas for your excursion.
When it comes to active recreation, we like for people to be able to go out on their mountain bikes. They can walk around, they can jog around if they're so keen. They can sit and relax in the Stolen Generations Memorial and just absorb the atmosphere. And they can go on tours, they can be involved with workshops that we offer. If they're particularly interested in fauna and birds on site, they can certainly go for twilight walks and have a look at our wallaroos and wallabies. We have a very large population here and they're very, very healthy. They can, if they're bird watchers, go and view through their binoculars more than 180 species of bird, obviously not all at one time.
If you're the competitive type, this event that kicks off on the first day of summer might be for you.
The 24-hour mountain bike race is on the 1st and the 2nd of December. It will be terrific. We've got people who are coming from all over Australia and certainly all over the state to attend this. It's a team event and it will run over Saturday and Sunday. The cyclists have these lights on the front of their helmets, and with a really challenging course, we're hoping that nobody falls off his bike or her bike, but I'm told by those who are mountain bike enthusiasts that this is one of their best events to be attended.
Maybe just thinking about that event wears you out, so let's get back to some more leisurely things, the must-sees in summer with Dan Bishop.
There's a range of must-sees. Probably the summer flowering Banksias, such as Banksia grandis, will look good. The kangaroo paws in our perennial display. Various small trees which are ideal for home gardens, such as Backhausia citriodora and Buckinghamia, are looking fantastic during summer.
Dan says the geographical characteristics of Mount Annan are perfect for this style of garden.
Mount Annan is a very dry site, and it was chosen because we're able to regulate how much water the plants are given. So that gives us some advantages in displaying plants that come from across the continent.
And here's some tips too for the home gardener.
It's always good to give deep watering, irregular watering, so you allow the soil to dry out between watering periods. We also prune lightly after they flower and apply an organic fertiliser such as Nutrog or something similar to give the plants some nutrient. We try to stay away from fertilisers with a high phosphate content.
Kaz McCallum explains that along the way during your visit there's a range of creative art pieces to admire.
We have an artist in residence program that's been running for 2 years now, and we've got sculptures here that have been built by our internal staff. We've got sculptures that have been donated by sculptors, and our 2 latest works as well. People really like being able to go for long wandering walks and just have a look not only at the landscape but also the cultural landscape. So we plan for many years to come to add to our sculptural collection, and ideally we will have what we call a sculptural walk one day.
And it's not just the stagnant art to see. You can experience the arts or book in for a short course.
Over the summer season, the biggest event that we've got will be Carols. Lancome have been sponsoring us for some time for this event, but Carols is an event that's just growing every year in the garden. Last year we had 8,800 people come. This year we're thinking maybe 10,000 people. That just gives you an indication of what a great time people have, because they keep coming back each year, bringing their extended families with them. So for anyone who's interested in carols and having fun with families, 15th of December, put it in your calendar.
Looking after our environment and keeping the garden pristine is something all visitors are asked to contribute to.
We have a very healthy wallaroo and swamp wallaby population here, and we also have some eastern grey kangaroos that have recently taken up residence. To retain this natural environment, we want to conserve our animal population as well as our plant populations. So we ask people not to leave their rubbish here, to take it with them, because we don't want our animals to become scavengers. We don't want them to become reliant on the waste that people leave behind. I mean, animals like ibises, for example, have become scourges in other natural areas, but we want to make certain that when people come to the Australian Botanic Garden at Mount Annan, what they see is as close to natural nature as we can manage to keep it.
Horticulturist Chris Cole is at the What's the Big Ideas Garden, a place where you can immerse yourself in conservation.
Here at the What's the Big Idea Garden at the Australian Botanic Garden at Mount Annan, it really is a garden that goes back to grassroots principles. It's a garden that uses Mother Nature as more or less a weapon against insects, creating soils and also microclimates in the area to enhance the way the plants grow. Another aspect of the garden is reusing a lot of materials that would otherwise get thrown out, whether it be for hard landscaping or for shaping plants. It really is a garden that tries to highlight the many ways in which native plants could be used in different ways that people might not think of in an ordinary landscape. I mean, for mine, native plants have always been thought of as the bush garden sort of aspect, whereas here we try to show them in, well, formal ideas. We try to show the ways that they can be presented for water-wise principles, and really it's a garden that probably encompasses a wide range of gardening styles.
One of the highest priorities of the Royal Botanic Gardens and Domain Trust is plant conservation. While we're faced with the grim reality of a worldwide increase of plant extinctions, and as the threatened species list continues to expand, the role of the 21st century botanic garden in conservation is becoming increasingly important. That's why Plant Bank at the Australian Botanic Garden Mount Annan is vital. It's the largest seed bank in Australia and one of the largest in the world. Plant Bank's destiny is to collect and store seed and plant material from all of Australia's native plant species, in the hope that no species should ever become extinct. Project manager John Seaman explains why Plant Bank is necessary.
I think you could refer to Plant Bank as being the ultimate insurance policy. It's, if you think of seeds a little bit like a form of currency, we can trade seeds, we can exchange them, we can sell them, but ultimately in Plant Bank we're storing seeds for long periods of time so that we can use them if that rainy day need is there to learn about plants, to find new food crops, potential clothes, fibre materials, structural wood perhaps, and one day we hope to be able to use that facility to store and return threatened species back to places where they might have been lost in the wild.
Soon, visitors to the garden will be able to take a tour.
We're strongly encouraging our visitors when they come, when the facility opens in mid-2013, to come inside the facility. As I said, see our scientists at work behind big plate glass windows and learn the story of how we collect seed, we grow it, we learn how to propagate it, and then put it back either into the Botanic Garden or back into one of our national parks around the country.
John gives us an example of what you might find in Plant Bank.
I think this tube is a good example of the types of things that you might find in Plant Bank. We currently have within the New South Wales Seed Bank around 100 million seeds from plants from all over Australia and beyond. And in this tube we have a pod of a rare and endangered orchid. It's a donkey orchid, and it has a pod, the dark pod at the top of the tube. At the bottom, it's very hard to see, but the dust-like specks within here, there's around 30,000 orchid seeds, and just goes to show the amount of amazing packaging that plants can do. They can package their entire life into a tiny little seed that can grow back into a fabulous plant.
Now we're at the Blue Mountains Botanic Garden, Mount Tomah. It's situated on a basalt-capped peak 1,000 metres above sea level and is Australia's highest placed botanic garden. The vista is unbelievable, breathtaking thanks to the Greater Blue Mountains World Heritage Area that surrounds it. And it's the perfect place to visit in summer to escape the heat. Here's Ross Ingram, acting curator. The Blue Mountains Botanic Garden, Mount Tomah, is situated on a basalt-capped peak 1,000 metres above sea level and is Australia's highest placed botanic garden. The vista is unbelievable, breathtaking thanks to the Greater Blue Mountains World Heritage Area that surrounds it. And it's the perfect place to visit in summer to escape the heat. Here's Ross Ingram, acting curator.
The key feature, I guess, is that we're situated at 1,000 metres above sea level in the middle of the World Heritage Area in the Blue Mountains. It's a volcanic remnant area that supports wonderful growth. So we get lovely, rich, green, lush vegetation and remnant forest, remnant rainforest. That's the cultivated area, so just over 30 hectares. We have an area of remnant rainforest we call the jungle, and that's about 33 hectares. And then we have 189 hectares of wilderness which adjoins the national park.
Do you like carnations? Senior horticulturist Matt Murray says the formal garden is a wonderful feature well worth seeing during the summer months, with carnations and plenty more.
The formal garden's really great in summer. It's particularly blooming from about December all the way through to April, and it's one of the main focuses of the gardens. There's lots of things flowering at the moment, particularly liliums. There's the chamomile too, which is the source of chamomile, the tea. There's lots of grasses which provide structure and colour through the garden. There's always something in bloom, and there's a lot of scented flowers here too. Some of the beautiful carnations are coming into flower too.
Here's Matt's view on the must-sees this season.
The view, of course. We have a 200-kilometre view from the visitor centre deck. That's always great to see. Any day, every day is is different. The roses are really nice through summer too, particularly as we're forecast to have a drier, warmer summer than normal, which really brings them to their perfection. And I think to escape the heat of Sydney and the humidity of Sydney, it's always nice up here in summer. So the woodlands are beautiful on a hot summer's day. That would be what I would definitely come up and see.
In terms of the overall Blue Mountains Botanic Garden Mount Tomah, Matt offers an interesting perspective.
This botanic garden is at about 1,000 metres above sea level, so it's a little cooler than a lot of other botanic gardens. The botanic garden's main focus for its collection is actually from the Southern Hemisphere. So we have a lot of plants that are from cooler regions of Australia and New Zealand, and also through the Southeast Asian region too. One of the things that's quite good about this garden is that there are old sections and new sections, and so the old sections have beautiful old mature trees, and the new sections have very exciting and contemporary designs. Also, with our flora, we're surrounded by the World Heritage Area, the Blue Mountains National Park. So a lot of our collections are also ones that are found through the Blue Mountains region. So.
Matt has some very practical advice for the home gardener too. The unparalleled natural beauty of this garden is supported by fantastic events and activities. Here's Functions and Events Manager Kristen Winder.
Visitors, when they arrive at the garden, have a number of choices to them. The visitor centre itself houses our greater World Heritage Exhibition Centre, so there's some interactive displays down there. There's a short 9-minute film with some stunning Blue Mountains wilderness scenery set to music. Once they're finished in there, we do sometimes have exhibitions up in our exhibition space, or visitors can visit our garden shop or dine in our a la carte restaurant, which again has fantastic views over the wilderness area.
One of the amazing things about the garden is the discovery of the Wallamai pine in 1994 by a local national parks ranger and identified by trust scientists. It was thought to be extinct before then. The Wallamai was around during dinosaur times 200 million years ago and is one of the rarest trees growing in the wild in the world. During summer, the Wallamai will feature, but there are many more exciting activities and events too.
The Blue Mountains Botanic Garden also offers a program of events throughout summer. It starts on the 1st of December with an exhibition by Fiona Lumsden. The exhibition is called Wallamai Wild Things, and we'll be exhibiting and selling some of the art that she's collected over her travels throughout the Blue Mountains over the years. Fiona will be offering also a workshop where you can learn to draw botanically the way she does. She focuses not just on plants but also on animals that are found out in the area.
While you're at the garden to see the plants, trees and landscape or attend an event, there are plenty of options to consider for your food and beverage requirements. You can even put a prawn on the barbie or snag or veggie burger or whatever. And there's help for those with mobility issues too.
We have barbecue facilities here, picnic facilities. For those with mobility issues, we have mobility scooters. We have a garden shuttle that does regular runs around the garden. And we also have a garden shop, as I said, for that souvenir to take home with you. So there's certainly a lot to do here at the garden. You can look and see what our program of event offers, and school holiday activities are another thing to keep the kids entertained.
There's even a do-it-yourself guide to help you entertain your children for the day.
We also have an adventure quest for children throughout the season. So basically the parents will just purchase a small little map for kids. They run around the garden answering the questions, and at the end of the quest they get a lucky dip to take home with them too.
And there's a school holiday program too.
Our program also offers Rainforest Rangers, a school holiday activity for children to keep the kids amused while the parents come and enjoy the garden and have a great dining experience here. You can actually enjoy the garden using our program of events for a full day out.
Thank you for visiting our summer YouTube channel. We hope to see you at one or all of our stunning 3 gardens managed by the Royal Botanic Gardens and Domain Trust this season. And God bless for a very happy Christmas and fantastic New Year.